There can be a sense of isolation felt by students. It's also a new experience for many teachers and students as well. To discuss some of the challenges and perhaps some benefits of online learning, we joined via Zoom by Lwazi Sithole. Lwazi is Mindworx Consulting's head of academy, as well as the COO there, Martin Pienaar. Good afternoon to you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here on the SABC News channel. So let's just first get an understanding. What sort of training does Mindworx Academy focus on?
Good afternoon, Palesa.
Hi, Martin. Can I just take that in the interim? So, Palesa, Mindworx, we specialize in, I'll call it digital skills training. We are primarily focused in your incoming skills, your short learning programs, as well as learnerships, more in line with what is the future of the world of work looking at. So, I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples. We're training things like your RPA, your data sciences, machine learnings, IT, software development, and the likes of those. And we're constantly trying to figure out in terms of what is the world we're looking at, or what are the scarce skills that are required for the future, and how do we build that learning into our youth today to equip them for their next journeys.
My understanding is that training had always been sort of delivered online even before this pandemic. Am I right?
Absolutely. But I think a lot of the training was also face-to-face. And we were faced with almost a crisis in the week before the lockdown, where many learners were doing learnerships where they had to get certain skills in a certain time frame. And the lockdown could have prevented that. So we had to force the rest of our training to go online.
And what challenges did you encounter when you had to go online with your trainings, and how different was it from your normal day-to-day, face-to-face encounter with the students?
Look, I'd say our biggest challenge initially, obviously, is how do you make and keep the training as interactive as possible? Because in the classroom, it's easy to control. You can read body language, you can see their faces, you can really see if the learning is taking place, as well as is the class being enjoyed. So when we moved it online, I think one of our challenges was how do we adapt to fully online while making the actual learning environment as interactive as possible, as well as allowing the learners to be able to express themselves almost in a similar situation as being in a classroom environment itself. So I'd say that was possibly our biggest challenge, and we had to learn to adapt our classroom nowadays in terms of how do you break it up, how do you make it fun, interactive, practical, and how do you keep all the students engaged throughout the day.
And what was the students' response? How has it been like? As you say, in a classroom setup, you are able to sort of read their body language, their non-verbal cues. So how has it been for the lecturers or the people who provide training, and how has it been for the students themselves?
I think everyone's had to adapt, and really quickly. So I think from the lecturer's perspective, you've got to reach out to individual candidates. You've got to listen carefully when somebody is quiet for too long and make sure that they're still engaged. But from a learner perspective, I think the advantage is now, because it's a blended learning approach, some of the learning is happening in a group session, in a classroom type situation online. But you're also going away and watching videos and doing work offline. So everyone can actually stay at the same level and keep up, which is different to an in-class situation where it's all lecture type training.
So, Lwazi, we've already touched a bit on some of the disadvantages of training online. Let's talk about the advantages. What have your observations been? What worked perfectly well for the lectures, and what worked for the students as well?
I think from the first couple of, say, 2-3 weeks of fully online learning, one of the things that we did is we kept refining it based on what have we seen work in the last couple of weeks, and based on the continuous improvements that we've done so far, probably what's really worked out for us now is that we've been able to adapt the classroom. So we divide the small amount of time that we had of them, and we divide it into a lot of more case study based training, a lot of case studies that are being done during the classroom itself, as well as we also have now a self-learning portion that happens during the day. And then later on in the afternoon, again, the facilitator comes in and we do another Q&A session. And because of how it's been broken and structured, and although we're still trying to improve it yet, it's really given us a different perspective. And the self-learning portion, for example, didn't exist previously. And we find that a lot of our learners are taking advantage of it and are able to then go and just query one aspect which they may have fallen behind on, and it gives them the time to catch up. And we think it just makes everybody in the classroom more in line, and there's a less chance of other people being left behind in this instance.
But you've also mentioned that prior to the crisis hitting the country, a number of your students were placed at learnerships. How did this COVID-19 pandemic impact on their learnerships? Because we do know, of course, that a number of workplaces were closed.
So, look, we were fortunate that the majority of the learners that we had trained at the beginning of the year just were being placed just before the lockdown actually started. Now we are, though, in a situation where we have a group of learners who had just started their training during this period. And yes, it's meant that the majority of our clients, in fact, all of our clients are currently on lockdown as the whole country is. And it's just lent to the fact that it is making it harder for us to place them. But we have not given up on it. It's a matter of, as the lockdown eases, we'll be able to assist these learners in also getting them workplace training and getting them the necessary skills to also just kickstart their careers and move on with their journeys.
All right, but from what I'm gathering from this discussion from both of you, Lwazi and Martin, is that it looks like this online teaching and online training really worked very well. So will you be going back to the classroom kind of setup when this COVID-19 is all over, or what are the plans for Mindworx? What approach are you going to be taking going forward?
I think there's some definite advantages to training remotely. And there are also advantages to being in a classroom. So I think the future is a blended approach. I think we need to come together for certain exercises and teamwork, but there are also advantages to doing work on your own. And so I really believe it'll be both going forward.
Right, I'm afraid that's where we'll leave it due to time constraints, but thank you so much for coming through. Lwazi Sithole, Mindworx Consulting's head of Academy, and the CEO there, Martin Pienaar, joining us now live via Zoom.